Do you think it is important to take a side in order to push back against the more powerful party in a conflict, or do you believe that it's better to avoid taking sides and focus on peace and humanity and brotherhood and oneness and leave the past in the past and move forward toward peace without assigning blame?
I think we have had enough this war. There are many people has died, and 80% of Gaza has been destroyed. Many people has lost their loved ones in Israel as well, soldiers and normal people. First step is to stop this. Then we need to find a way to promote peace. That's it. It's simple as that.
But if you're somebody who's sitting in Canada or USA, do you want them to criticize only Israel, to criticize Israel and Palestinians, or something different?
Of course, we need to criticize both sides because we have been talking now for an hour of the negatives on the both sides. So there's no other way around to
Yeah.
finish that.
I actually agree. My perception is I found so much fault in different ways, but from both sides and how they're contributing, and just blaming one because you perceive somebody as being lighter skinned or less power. Yeah, I get it, the power thing. I get it, but it's not the whole picture. It's not the whole thing.
The world should stop that, simply.
Welcome to this very interesting and timely and important conversation with Corey Gil-Schuster, an Israeli Jew living in Israel right now, originally from Canada, and Mohammad, who is going to remain anonymous with his camera off, living in the West Bank right now. We're going to have a conversation about how we can do our best to understand what's going on in Israel and Palestine at the moment, and how we can understand the people there in a better way, in a clearer way, and how we can move toward peace, hopefully through understanding, which is a very, very difficult thing. And I know, Corey, I've heard your recent interviews. I know that it's a very difficult thing to get toward peace, but we'll do our best in this conversation. At least maybe we can brainstorm a little bit and hopefully come up with some ideas for moving forward that many people have been doing for many years. So first, I just want to introduce Corey for our audience. So I would say that Corey takes the exact opposite approach of the one-sided nationalist partisan warriors on social media in general that are the physical embodiment of the conflict itself. Many people take one side and support that side against the other and just sort of use talking points and propaganda to support that side and ignore the important perspectives of the other side. And I think that just perpetuates the conflict. But what Corey has been doing is walking around in Israel and Palestine, both sides, in the West Bank, not in Gaza, as far as I know. You haven't been over there. But in the West Bank and in Israel, to interview Israelis and Palestinians about really, really difficult questions that often are sort of prickly and that many people don't like to discuss in public. And Corey does it with a video camera and publishes it all on YouTube. And I first discovered Corey through some random comment on social media, somebody posting your YouTube link, and watched a video of, I think the first one I saw was whether Palestinians would accept the Jewish people living in Israel, continuing to live there, or whether all the Jews needed to leave. I found that very eye-opening, a little bit depressing, but really good to understand. Also to understand a little bit more about the Palestinian side and what their perspective is on the land. So I would say you probably have interviewed more Israelis and Palestinians on these issues than any other human on earth. That's my guess. Maybe there's somebody else that has, but I would say
No, it's not a showing off thing, but I think, yeah, there's at least, I would estimate about 10,000 people. And,
yeah,
obviously not on everything, but nobody seems to be doing what I'm doing in this way. So, which is too bad.
Yeah, no, and
I mean, I love doing it, but yeah,
it is.
others should do it too.
I want to just thank you personally for doing the work that you're doing. I've heard in your recent videos, and the one that you posted 2 days ago, I think it was asking Israelis what they wanted to say to a Jewish child, or to a Palestinian child. Maybe it was a different
It was
one.
a few weeks ago. It was a few weeks ago. Yeah.
There was one from 2 days ago that you posted. You were actually in Palestinian area, and you were asking, oh, if it could be the Jews' land as well, if
Yeah.
Palestinians' land,
Yeah.
but can it also be the Jews' land as well? And I heard a tone of like in your voice of like maybe it was anxiety, but it also felt like a little bit of frustration at times. And I know that it can be a depressing and frustrating process to get all these answers that often go against peace and the ability for coexistence. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because you're really the only one doing it, and I think that it's so much better than what the mainstream media is doing, which is often just taking one side and presenting that narrative, and then the other channel does the opposite, and it just creates division and polarization. Yeah, thank you. So I just want you to know that I think it's really, really important, and I know it can be frustrating, and I want you to take heart that you're doing something.
Yeah, that wasn't actually even necessarily the original intent. The original intent was I thought it would be a dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians. And then I very quickly realized that neither side has really any they don't care to understand the other side. Even if they can't meet, they don't even care that they can't understand each other. They don't want to have an understanding of each other. And then I figured, okay, so I'll create understanding for you guys out there internationally of what is going on here. Because I also didn't know the Palestinian side. I still don't think I understand the Palestinian side all that well. The Israeli side I knew a bit better because I had lived here. I was married to an Israeli and I'd lived in Israel for many years, even though I'm Canadian. But still, every so often, people surprise me, for good or for bad, on both sides. But the idea is, the central idea very quickly developed into you can't solve a conflict till you understand what it's about. And if the idea is to find a solution, which I don't know if there is a solution, at least understand what's going on. As you're right, all the talking heads out there talking about how they know everything. Okay, I mean, it's just one element of it. I'd rather hear from the people on the ground what they think.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you don't even fully understand the Palestinian side yet, and I think maybe the reason is that we think that there is a Palestinian side and an Israeli side when really there are millions of people and everybody has their own perspective. So sometimes we think of these things as like monolithic or monoliths, like is the Israeli side, the Palestinian side, the Israelis are doing this, the Palestinians are doing this, but the truth is there's just millions of people and they clump broadly onto two sides, but
of course.
Yeah.
Mohammad, do you want to say anything about what was said so far?
Of course, yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, Corey, first of all.
Hey.
Long time.
Mohammad.
Anyway, why Corey's work is really important because I believe that most of Palestinians and Israelis has never met a civilian. Usually, the Israelis meet low-class workers if they met them in Israel, and let's say prisoners in the prison. That's what they get in touch with. And Palestinians also, they only get in touch with the soldiers at the checkpoints or also the employer if they are low-class workers in Israel. So the vast majority of both sides, they have never met normal people.
Yep.
So this is actually one of the biggest problem here in the conflict, if we can call it a conflict in the first place. People has no chance to interact and find the human side in the other part. And promoting this is something really amazing because they have a glance, even though using the YouTube or whatever, but at least they have the chance to see the human side in the other. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
you, again.
I actually meant about, the fact that Palestinians aren't all the same. There are a lot of differences of opinions with Palestinians as well.
Yeah, the Palestinians
Yeah.
are, as I said before, they live in different pieces of land, and despite the fact that you might think that they are all the same, um, they are only 2 million in West Bank, or 2.5, I'm not sure. But you can find along different opinions on the spectrum, from liberalism to extremism. The thing is, might be different in Gaza. I'm not really sure, um, because they have been on a heavy propaganda for the last, say, 20 years or less. The same propaganda is also there here and there also in Israel. But um, in West Bank in general, people has more freedom of being out of that propaganda, because um, let's say it in a different way. We don't trust the government. This is the first issue. We have a really big trust issues with the government and the political leader in general. That's why newly we have found out that people has new opinions about the conflict and about the world in general.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for providing that perspective, Mohammed. I think a lot of people in the West don't really understand even the difference between the West Bank and Gaza and all those things. So I think it's really helpful to hear how the differences in the mindsets are in the two places. It's a little scary to think that Corey, your videos are filmed in the West Bank, where people are more maybe open-minded and moderate, and I wonder what the answers would be if you would be asking the same questions in Gaza.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I worry or wonder about when I watch your videos is I wonder how much of the answers are influenced by what people are going to what the respondents are thinking that others will think of them by listening to their answers in their own towns and their own cities. They may try to either thump their chests to try to sound cool from among their peers, or they may try to say that they want peace because they're afraid of that you're some like Mossad agent or something like that. So I wonder how much of it is influenced by what others think of them. I don't know. What do you think, Corey? What do you think about that?
Well, I can speak on the Israeli side, and I'll let Mohammed speak about the Palestinian side. So the Israeli side, first of all, I want to say there's this idea that people watching often think that the person is speaking to the world, meaning internationally. And I don't think that's really the case. I don't think most Palestinians or Israelis care what the world thinks, or even have any idea what the world thinks. Couldn't care less. Just not. They're not giving propaganda for the sake of themselves. They really believe these things, at least on the Israeli side. And the Israeli side, I think there's more of a bit of more of a culture of sounding moderates within the society, meaning you don't want to sound too extreme. But at the same time, you're thinking you don't want to go sound too soft. And it's not because of what Palestinians will think or internationally will think. It's of course what other people, your friends will think, your family will think a little bit. So, and trying to sound smart. So on the Israeli side, I don't think they really care what anyone thinks. And actually, there's an Israeli quirk, a Jewish quirk, of sometimes giving the opposite answer just to sound like you're smarter than everyone else. So if everyone in the group is saying A, they're going to say B, because it's just this weird Jewish quirk that we have. And that happens sometimes too, that people just like to be, give the contradictory answer. That happens also. I don't think that I think they believe it. I just think people forefront information based on what they think they want to say at that moment. So, and I have my impression, but I think Mohammed will say it much better than me about Palestinians. I have my thoughts too, but go ahead, Mohammed.
Yeah, actually, we had this discussion before, Corey.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I
I
think you've
tend
taught me more about this than most people. So go ahead.
true. I tend to believe that most Palestinians they like to be in the to have the heroic image in front of camera. So the opposite side, the opposite of what the Jews like to have, like showing the Western, um, let's say, politically corrected views, um, if we can say that, um, to themselves, as Corey said, I'm not sure, to themselves and the world, especially that they speak a language that most of the world does not understand. So I agree with Corey that that might be because of themselves and the community they live in, and that might change if you change the location of the of where Corey is making the interview in Tel Aviv or West Bank settlement. The views might be quite different. Anyway, the Palestinians like to show the heroic side of their character in front of camera most of the times, um, because the Palestinian propaganda is built on that ground that we cannot lose whatever happened, and we will always be the winner, and we will always stay strong whatever you have done. So yeah, it is affected not only by the camera and also affected by the current situation in the conflict. Like when the things are more heated, you'll find more extremist views, of course, and vice versa. So yeah,
Yeah.
as answering your question, definitely there are differences during time and location, and of course, Palestinians have that um, mentality to show that we are heroes, and even though we are died.
Yeah. Let me add to that. So I'll just give an example. I've asked two separate videos of Palestinians, would you take Israeli citizenship as a solution to the conflict? So it would all become one state, it'll all be Israel, and you'll get citizenship, which I always said you will have full rights as an Israeli, full rights like an Arab Israeli has. And I tried two different ways. I tried one where I record them, I show their face, and another total video where I don't show their face, it's just their voice. And no one agreed to take Israeli citizenship. And I know from people that some people would take Israeli citizenship, but you have to gain some trust with them, meaning they don't know who I am. I'm approaching them on the street. They don't know. They might think I'm, the Israeli intelligence. They might think I'm from a foreign, from their own intelligence, like meaning I'm tricking them. So people are not going to tell me if they would take Israeli citizenship, they wouldn't tell me the truth anyways. So, and I knew this going into it, but I figured, okay, let's try anyway, see what happens. That is my sense. You need to gain trust with people.
Both times with the video and without the video, they all said no.
They all said no.
Yeah. Wow. So, and you think that that's 100% because they think that you might be tricking them or something like that, rather than them actually not wanting Israeli citizenship because of the reasons that they say in other videos that this is all our land and the Israelis are, shouldn't be here and things like that, and we shouldn't be ruled over by Jewish people and things like that.
Many Palestinians would actually, I think more than 50% would accept that offer, um, um, even though they answered no.
Yeah. So the question is, they probably think
Again,
it's
Corey,
unfair to even ask them this, right?
you
In a
can't
sense.
you can't blame them when they don't have trust with let's say a white man or Westerns in general, because or any other thing. We have trust issues, of course, because you know how the Shin Bet or the intelligence operate. They usually dress like us and do um, crazy stuff. So they have that trust issue, of course. They always skeptical about Westerns coming here and why they are coming here. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for clarifying that, Mohammed. And I want to move on to another topic because I have a bunch of topics I want to cover, and I want to make sure that we do it in time. So one of the sort of elephants in the room whenever people are talking, I think Corey and I, our faces are visible. Mohammed, yours is not. Obviously, there's security reasons for that. And I think a lot of people, whenever you're having these conversations, and then you post something like this on social media or on TV or anything like that, there are always people that are arguing that people are biased in their views. And I want to just talk about that before we continue, just so that we can kind of acknowledge where we're at in our own perspectives. I'll say for myself, I'm an American-born Jewish person. I'm not religious Jewish. I'm more Buddhist or Hindu if I picked something like that. But I think that still growing up in a Jewish family, in a Jewish culture, in a Jewish society, with Jewish family in Israel and in New York, I have a like a cultural ingrained perspective or viewpoint on the conflict that can be very hard to transcend. And I've done my best to introspect and soul search and understand the Palestinian perspective as much as possible, and try to understand what we as diaspora Jews and Jews in Israel have done wrong to as our part in this conflict. But I do want to acknowledge that I think that it's very hard to completely overcome one's own biases. What do you think? And I guess we can all talk about this and answer in our own times. But Corey, I'd like to ask you, what do you think about that for yourself?
Well, of course we have biases. Yeah, of course we have bias going in. Even God, in everything. So I'm Canadian, even though I'm Jewish. I sort of landed up in Israel almost accidentally. I had to get to know a whole new culture. It's not like being Jewish outside, completely different culture. I often take people like you with me to, around in Israel, and Israelis say things, even sometimes in English, and I actually translate what they're saying from English to you, the foreigner, to understand, because everybody speaks in these slogans, right? Because we all have these ideas of what Israel is, or what peace means, or any of these things. And because I lived in Israel for a long time, you start to get the subtleties underneath that people are using when they use the word peace or whatever. It can mean very different thing than what you think it means. I have the same issue when I'm in the Palestinian territories. I've been doing this for 10, 11 years. And every time with both my translator and Mohammed and other people, I say, wait, and I clarify. I go, do you mean this? And they go, no, the opposite. And I'm always wrong, no matter what I think it is. The cultures are so different between Israelis and Palestinians, and then Israelis, Palestinians, and internationals. So each person is interpreting things in really different ways, even if they're using the exact same words. So I always tell people, clarify, ask why, because in the why, when they explain, sometimes you get a bit more clarification. But even then, because I don't speak the language, I don't speak Arabic.
It's more like a Middle Eastern thing, where both
Go
in the
ahead.
Palestinian side, it's more like a Middle Eastern thing in both Israelis and Palestinians. Confirmation bias is embedded in that culture. If you take the smallest, or let's say a part of the problem, let's discuss maybe the historical context of the conflict. You will see definitely a confirmation bias on the both sides. There's a long history. It's 3,000 years, and you can actually choose whatever era you want and build your story on it. So,
and each
again,
side will cherry pick the elements from each of that to prove their point.
yeah, they will make the extreme effort to just show you the evidence, which for you it's not an evidence. The other side, I mean, it's a Middle Eastern thing. It's not only in this area, actually, in the whole Middle East, that we have this problem. When we have two groups, we'll find everyone trying to find anything that support their opinion or views.
I don't think it's just a Middle Eastern thing. I think it's a very human thing. I think people have been doing that since the beginning of like the tribes and maybe even like tribal life tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe more, millions of years ago, depending, I guess, on how far you go back. All around the world, people are doing the same thing, finding confirmation that their group is the best, and then using that to just continue conflicts against other groups.
Yeah, I studied conflict resolution. I work in conflict resolution, and conflict theory. Yes, that's true. There's no really unique group. People tend to act in predictable ways in conflicts. Now, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has elements that are slightly different than other places, but really, people are people, and they kind of act in predictable ways, more or less. So, yeah, of course, people will drag. And again, to me, Mohammed, sorry?
I'm sorry. I was saying that it's still, from my opinion, it's more a Middle Eastern thing because it's still the society in Israel and Palestine is still, and in the Middle East in general, is still based on the tribal things that you have just mentioned before 2 minutes. And
yeah, I'm not sure if this is what you meant, Mohammed, but I would say that Israel itself is a very Middle Eastern country. I know internationally it's perceived as this European colony, but most Israelis come from the Middle East, meaning their ancestors, whatever. I mean, they're technically from here, but came from Syria, Iraq, Morocco. It's a very Middle Eastern culture in how it
even if
perceives
they are
things.
Ashkenazi, they have absorbed that Middle Eastern culture because
Yes,
they have
also.
And of course interacted with society.
Yes, yes.
True. So I want to, on a more personal level, ask both of you, I know we all acknowledge that biases are here and that it's a common thing and it's a human thing. But like for me, I'm acknowledging my own personal bias toward the conflict as much as I can. I try not to have a bias. I don't know if it's possible. But Corey, do you feel, and Mohammed, also you, do you feel that you personally still retain some bias toward one side of the conflict, even though you are trying your best to be objective and to bring peace as much as possible?
Mohammed, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say certainly yes. At the end of the day, we are just a human. We live in that society we live in. Of course, we have certainly some ideas we had since childhood, let's say, and those things that you can still find as much as you can try to be objective and think logically. You will also always find yourself drowned in this basic ideas that you had when you have been a child. For example, the atrocities that have happened in Otif or settlements in Gaza, near Gaza, it was horrific. But definitely, I would see. I can't say how to say that. I would cry more on Palestinians. That's sure, because they are my people, and yeah, it's a kind of confirmation bias or bias in general, but it's there, and we can't erase it. Yeah.
I would say the same when these things happen to Israelis. I mean, I feel more of a connection. Also, understand that we're in an environment or in our own bubbles where our news, what we see, and even our social media is telling us what our side is how our side is the victim. So you're much more influenced by hearing how we're suffering. And I know, for example, in the Israeli news, they don't really they show the destruction of Gaza, just to give an example, but they don't show how it's affecting as much. They do a little bit, but not as much as how it affects regular people. But when I see Al Jazeera, if I go to an Arab house in Israel, I haven't been to the West Bank in months, and I see Al Jazeera on, they're showing dead bodies in Gaza. They're showing children suffering. Most Israelis don't see that. And I'm assuming it's true in the West Bank when something, there's a shooting or a stabbing in Israel. They're not going to see. They're going to hear about it, but they're probably not going to see the gory details in the same way.
I'm gonna confirm that because on 7th of October, the videos we have been seeing for let's say 2 or 3 days, most of them was videos of killing soldiers. I didn't even know that there were civilians dead up until the fourth day.
Wow.
That's because of the media we had here. we believe that the attack was targeted basically on soldiers, or let's say military bases.
Yeah. So we heard
from
the opposite. We heard about the
I'm
civilians,
saying the
and then
truth.
days later heard about the 200, 300 soldiers and police who were killed.
Yeah, all the images we have seen and the videos where actually soldiers are being killed or kidnapped. But after that, because I tried to search, I found out the horrific stories of the civilians and what they had to face. And as Corey said, for in Gaza, it's the same thing for Israelis, I'm sure. Um, they see only people. I'm sorry, IDF claiming that they are attacking. Um, let's say normal. How to say that? Hostel.
Terrorists?
Yeah, they are killing terrorists or targeting a terrorist.
Mhm.
But they don't see. They don't show. Um, it's not a collateral damage, of course, but they don't see. They don't show the normal people suffering.
Yeah, it's terrible how the mass media and the mainstream media propagate the narratives, like you're saying, of one side over the other. I think that this creates more of the conflict and makes it much harder to solve. I think it's a propaganda war between media stations, and also between the governments and the states that support those media networks. And in the United States, we have a similar thing. We have, for example, Fox News versus CNN, which are, sort of like these propaganda machines that are talking about the opposite of each other, the conservative versus the liberal. And I think they have a different reason for being that way. They're not, rather than being propaganda for a state, they're actually creating polarization in order to get people to feel angry and continue watching their channel. And that anger and hate gets people to be really engaged with their content and their channel. I think it's a very human thing. And I think that spreads between that human need to go into the anger and the hate when you're starting to feel it, to go into that. I think that that's what causes this polarization of media in the United States, and then also it's the same thing that causes that polarization of media between Israel and Palestine, for example, where we are the victims and we hate those guys. And unfortunately, I wish that I could just say, hey, you know what? We need to demand that our media is not this way, and we need to change the media and have the media be humanistic and human oriented rather than being polarized and one-sided. And if we could just demand that and make that happen, it would be great. But I think that the truth is it comes from us humans, that we support these media organizations to be that way, because that is our human nature to resonate with that type of anger and hate and self-victimization and one-sidedness, unfortunately.
Well, there's a difference. You guys are rooting this on like sports teams. Which side am I on? Am I pro-Palestine or pro-Israel? This is for Israelis. They feel like if we can't show any weakness, or we're gonna die. Palestinians, I'm assuming, feel exactly the same. So there is no one, almost no one on either side who's going to say, you need to show me a new humane version of the other, because they want to win. Everyone wants to win. And I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
I
you
think
guys
it's
can help outside. Stop criticizing us. Come here and help.
Yeah, I know. I think it's very much. First of all, I really like what you said. Stop criticizing us. Come here and help. I want to get into that in a minute. I have a topic labeled blame. I want to get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to conclude this media conversation. If it's obviously something that we can't conclude in a minute, but I think that the what I was trying to say is that the 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 tendency for humans to resonate with hate and is a function of our own fear. We are all afraid that others are going to harm us and our families and our loved ones. Whether it's here, well, in the West, maybe it's less intense. It's more cultural, like people are taking our jobs or something like that. But in Israel and Palestine, it's more visceral. People are trying to kill us. But I think it's that same fear and hate that drives the media in both places to be so one-sided. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but I wonder, I don't know, do either of you have any thoughts on how this could be fixed? And maybe we can't do it as individuals, but maybe just as a concept of how this could be improved.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Huh?
Actually, let me put it in this way. Um, for people to have tolerance and promoting peace and to reach whatever we want, you need a lot of people. In the contrary, to make us suffer now, we needed only 1,000 men that made that atrocities and put us back to the same to the first circle in 1948. So whatever you are ambitious for peace, you have to know that needs huge compromises, not only from people. That's all needs governments and leadership, and that's we don't have now, either in the Palestinian or the Israeli side.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, perhaps it is the leaders that need to make the decisions, because I think that it's good to have grassroots as well, to have the people come together around things and concepts and ideas of peace and brotherhood and all that. But like you said, Mohammed, it does require a lot of people to make that work. Hopefully, we'll have...
he touches on a good point, because I actually studied, this is one of the things I was always interested in, is how do the grassroots work in terms of making peace between Arabs and Jews, Israelis and Palestinians. And it's obviously still a benefit for people to meet and get to know each other and humanize each other. But you really need that leader to give you permission to say it's okay to meet with the other. You need that leader. And there has not been any leader in many, many years who has ever even hinted at that permission. Yitzhak Rabin and Peres used to hint at it. They didn't even say it bluntly, because they wanted to sound tough to their people. But even that, you don't have people giving you permission. I remember hearing, because I was here during the Oslo years, I remember on TV there was this liberal rabbi who was, I think he was, no, I don't think he was American, but he said something about how the Oslo Accords gave him permission to call Arabs in here Palestinians. Now he had permission. He used to do it, but he used to do it quietly. And now he has permission. This is in 1994, so we're talking about a long time ago. And now he has permission to call them Palestinians. That's such a minor thing, but it's an example of, you need someone to tell you it's okay. It's okay for Palestinians to rethink how they're going to compromise. It's okay for Israelis to rethink how they're going to live next to Palestinians.
Yeah,
we need that.
Yeah, so I love what you say about the leaders needing to give permission to the people, but I'd like to also note the flip side of that, Perez and Rabin were only being able to hint at it because they knew that the people would not like it.
Yep.
So sometimes the people also need to give permission to the leaders to give them permission. You see what I mean? At being
but it's hard in a violent conflict when people are being killed in Gaza every day. Palestinian leader can't stand up and say it's time for peace. Same in Israel. Israelis are very traumatized by what happened on October 7th. And it's hard to find even people on the left, even the people who used to be pro-peace. It's hard to find anybody who says, yes, let's negotiate with the Palestinians. It's hard. And we're in an active conflict at the moment. So
that's true.
It's tough.
You will find the most extremist views now.
Yeah.
Even though on the left side.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that those leaders can't stand up and say we want peace, because the people will not be with them. So that's why I think that the grassroots also needs to be there, and they need to have both of those pieces in order to give each other permission and keep on sort of elevating each other.
You need like someone to play like peace enabler. I am now not showing my face because normalizing might not be legal in where I live. So we are in this situation. So I am against nationalism and nation state and blah 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 and all that things, but I'm realistic. We can't have peace now. We need a lot of time and a lot of effort I'm so ambitious. I have been so ambitious, but after what happened, as Corey said, people are traumatized, and they you often hear people say, "We will never forget, we will never forgive."
Yeah. Both
In both
sides.
sides.
I hear from my coworkers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I hear it from both sides. That's the
It makes
problem. That if you are claiming that you'll never forget and forgive, that's a problem. That's meaning that we will never have peace. Simply put.
Yeah.
yeah.
And people aren't looking ahead. There's no vision in this, by the way, in this region in general of what's, what 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what's going to happen. Everyone's thinking about tomorrow only. And nobody is coming to the conclusion rationally, but all this hate only creates more violence. That's the rational way of thinking. But it's what people instinctively, they think through emotions. So they think, no, it's not just I hate, therefore I need to carry this on, and I have to win, and this is the only way to win.
But
So it's very difficult.
the reality and the history always tell us that you can't actually win against you can't actually win when you are creating that huge, vast devastation of a place. And I can understand actually how this is going to be a win, because we both know that those childs are going to grow up one day and they actually will never forget and will never forgive, because they have been through one of the most brutal shit in history, maybe in the modern history. So I don't know actually what we can do.
Yeah,
we need someone to, as I said before, to play like a peace enabler.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm hoping that the Gulf states and the Arab states could come in and because it is the Israeli dream to be recognized by the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, that the Arab world will accept them. But if the price of that is a Palestinian state, ooh, everyone's very uncomfortable about that. They're like, no, not worth it, not worth it. Maybe they could come in and convince people. I don't know. And I'm assuming it's the same with Palestinians, that nobody was going to
the Israelis
claim
think
no.
that might be a prize for terrorism if they give a state now.
Yeah. And they're worried about the next October 7th. That's what the worry is.
But,
so if someone can come in and play parent between both of them, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if Palestinians would accept it either, by the way. By the way, I always have to say this.
Actually,
Everyone always, sorry, miss this?
We have like 10,000 obstacles to
Of
peace.
course, yes. And the world seems to look at
like
Israel as
the settlements, the economy, the borders, the many things actually.
Oh, and yeah, if you even solve one, which nobody seems to want to solve one, you should have another 10,000 in its way. And by the way, I just want to repeat, it's also both sides too. So there's this idea that it's only Israel because they're the stronger. Absolutely, I agree. A better economy, more educated. It's only Israel. Palestinians also mostly feel similarly. So I don't know. It's not like one is going to fall in line if the other agrees to something. You need both sides to actually agree to this, because if not, you have the people who come along and try to destroy. Like Mohammed said, there's extremists in both sides. It's a minority, but they're there and they want to destroy.
That's what I'm saying. The negative people are very effective. You need like many positive people to go over that. That's the actual problem.
Because all you need is one violent experience in the news, and everyone says, "You see, we can't trust them." That's true both sides.
True.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it really is true. I want to get into this topic more as we get into the peace section of the interview. I have a topic of peace that I want to conclude with, but I do want to move into this topic of blame. We've been touching on this. And Corey, especially what you were just saying about how people kind of just blame one side or the other, and that's not necessarily helpful. But one of the things that I've been seeing very much in the in social media, I really it's something that makes me so it's very difficult for me to respond to this in social media, where people I'm posting for peace, other people are posting for peace. And then in the comments, people get angry at them for posting for peace, saying, no, we need to call out the true evil, the true aggressor, the true villain. in order to make them stop and make them pay. And you can't just be neutral. You have to be take a side, and it's called call out culture. I think there's at this it bothers me because I think that they are perpetuating the conflict and becoming extensions of the conflict. But I want to get your perspectives on this, both of you, Corey and Mohammad. Do you think it is helpful to take a one-sided viewpoint and to assign blame and to call out the aggressor, or do you think it is better to take the side of peace and humanity and leave the past in the past and move forward? I want to give that question to both of you.
I'm going to start on this one.
Yeah, please go on.
So no, of course it doesn't help. First of all, the problem with all of these things is that there are historical precedents for everything. So as Mohammed was saying, when does a side give up? They never give up. Well, if you look at Germany and Japan, they were, killed into submission. And so there's a precedence that people think, if I do this, everything will be good. I will win. The same is with taking a side. We have South Africa and many other conflicts that through public pressure were solved, sort of. I mean, I would say South Africa still has a lot of issues, but whatever. I don't think in this case it's going to work. I could be wrong. Israel, okay, so people will say, yes, if America stopped giving Israel money and supporting Israel, Israel will fold, meaning give up in terms of the conflict. No, it will not at all. First of all, I don't think that's going to happen. Israel produces a lot of things that, in terms of even just intellectually, that the world needs, and business will always rule. Second, even if America never supported Israel again or gave money to it, no one Israeli cares. Don't care. Couldn't care less. Tiny part of the budget each year. Tiny. And I actually personally prefer as America didn't give any money to Israel, but that's just me. I don't see Palestinians backing down because the entire Arab world, which you see the Gulf, is sort of like getting fed up with Palestinians and saying, come on, guys, we live in an international community. That's my perception anyways. We need to be mature and we need to compromise. And that's my perception of what's going on behind the scenes. I don't see Palestinians caring. They couldn't care less. They think they're right. Israelis think they're right. They'll fight to the death. So I don't know if the opposite of having compassion, how that's exactly going to help, but it's better than choosing sides, because the choosing sides thing, this is my point, is that everybody feels even more defensive. So if I tell Palestinians, you're a bunch of barbarians who are acting awful, you think they're going to, and I've actually said these things to both Israelis and to Palestinians, I say these things all the time. Do you think they actually back down and go, oh my God, you're right, I'm acting like a barbarian? You are right. I am. People don't act that way. That's not how people act. So help people find a way forward. That is what I would say. I don't know what that way is forward, by the way. I don't have a solution, but I would like anybody to be, once people are open to a solution, I already see some hope. They'll accept some kind of solution. Already I'm like, oh, we have something we can deal with. That we can work with that.
And that can come through understanding. That can come through understanding, like your videos, being able to understand that the people on the other side are human and are not evil. Maybe they hold some extreme views, but at least that they're human and that they think the things that they think, and they believe the things that they believe, and they feel the things that they feel for a reason.
Yes,
because
everyone has reasons. Exactly.
That once we can see that at least there's a door open to the idea that maybe we can come to some kind of a peace.
And again, because people think in black and white terms, both Israelis and Palestinians, I mean, it doesn't mean I agree with them. When I hear people talk about martyrs in Palestine, I mean, I think it's awful, but it comes from something. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. They're my neighbors. I have to understand somehow and integrate it into how I think.
Yeah. Wow. It's a very deep conversation. I want to let Mohammad weigh in here. What do you think? Because, let me tell you one other thing that I've seen on social media. People say that not taking a side supports the side of the oppressor. And I don't want to label either side as an oppressor. I think both sides have problems that they need to work on. But if you look at the full situation, there are the people that are the most oppressed in the moment right now are living in the West Bank and Gaza, I would say. That's my personal just view of it. I think is
I would agree. Is even somebody who, yes, on the other side, more or less agree.
So if people say that not taking a side supports the oppressor, I don't, as a Jewish person, I find it hard to respond to that. We should all be, taking the side of humanity and not taking sides. Mohammed, I want to get your opinion on this and your feelings on this. Do you feel it is important and helpful to take one side and to call out an aggressor, or do you feel it is better to take the side of humanity and peace, and try to leave the past in the past and move forward toward a solution that works for everyone?
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to comment on the submitting thing of the Japanese and the Germans. Corey, maybe you have forgot something, that let's say the Islamic mentality is not feared of death, and this is a different thing. It means like if you try to eliminate everyone, actually you need to eliminate everyone to win, because they will never submit. This is the idea. They want to die, because in the Islamic faith, if you died by the infidels, you want to say, you are going to heaven, and you know what I'm going to say. So it's a different mentality than the Japanese.
Yes, it's different than in the West. You're right.
Yes.
It's a different way. Well, the Japanese had somewhat similar. Anyways, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, the samurai thing. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. But it's
you say you know what I'm going to say, but I think most listeners
explain, because I know this better.
Like I think Corey, you mentioned it at one point. Like people say, "Oh, you know what I'm talking about." I saw in one of your interviews. So people say, "You know what I'm talking about," but you actually have no idea what you're talking about, because this idea is so foreign, Mohammed, so foreign to people in the United States. They have no idea that people think that way. I would like, can you explain, first, are you like a Muslim, like religious Muslim, and is
I'm an
this
atheist, actually.
a way that you've been thinking or are taught to think or believe?
I was born as a Muslim. I belong to a Muslim family, Sunni Muslim family. But actually I became an atheist like when let's say 15 years ago. Actually, yeah, I could say simply that religion could be one of the obstacles here in that conflict. I just recalled that. Having extremist views on both sides actually led us to the catastrophe that we live in now. And letting things deteriorating and claiming that remaining the status quo also led us to that, and led us to let's say a fascist government that leading Israel now, which includes people like Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir, that we have never seen before in Israel. And don't get me wrong, of course, it led us also to a terrorist government in Gaza. And yeah, that's what happened actually. But again, if you are not interfering, you are actually in a way or another giving permission to the stronger side to eliminate the other. And I can't see how this consequences of that would be good or positive for Israel and the people and the civilians in Israel. Because if you are targeting civilians, you have to expect the other happening to you again and again and again, and we will never find peace this way. We need to change the governments, of course. That's the first step to find peaceful life in this piece of land. But I can't see also both sides are ready for that, because I can understand Israelis because they believe that safety comes first, and those crazy terrorists can keep them safe, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I mean, let me kind of tell me if I'm wrong about this. You're saying that within a lot of Islamic, Palestinian Muslims, because the only ones I know, there is an element of we're not afraid to die, in fact, it's an honor to die if I'm dying against my enemy. And partially as a reaction, I would say yes, on the Jewish-Israeli side, there is a defensiveness to this. And I don't think it's only because of Palestinians. It's also, we have a history in Judaism, as anyone Jewish knows, of commemorating how we've been oppressed all through history. So the roots are there. They're there to make us feel like victims.
I've heard that there's this mentality of I'll die for the cause and that it doesn't matter. I've heard that usually from the Israeli side. I have a client, a meditation client who's in the IDF or who's a reservist, and he went into Gaza and he was saying that people there were the civilians were running toward the bombs because they wanted to be on camera. They had people running behind them with to take pictures. And I didn't fully believe him. I was like, he's like a reservist soldier who's telling me this. But I wonder, is this something that you could see as being possibly true? And if so, how widespread is this this feeling in the culture in the West Bank? Maybe I don't know if you know about in Gaza, but at least where you are.
It's actually not only in West Bank and Gaza. It's an Islamic thing. We have seen this in ISIS. They actually fought for the last person and they have killed them all. That's how ISIS finished. But of course, the kids and the women are now detained in an actually very bad situation, not even good for animals, in a whole concentration camp in North Syria. And there's around 700,000 people there. And I expect like 10 years in the upcoming 10 years, we'll have ICE again because those kids has not been in any kind of a program to de-radicalize them.
How common do you think that is from what you know? Because you have friends who are not like that, obviously.
Right, and how common, maybe I would say in the West Bank specifically, because I mean, it's what we're talking about at the moment. How common would you say it is?
If we are in a severe situation like in Gaza, I assume like the vast majority will turn to carry a gun to die. Yeah, of course, if they are Muslims.
And would you say that that's, I mean, men, women, and children all like have that mentality?
No, of course, only the men. Let's assume that above 16, maybe, or 17, something like that. Okay. They have the faith of jihad, let's say.
Do you see that as a cultural thing or more as a religious thing or something else?
A religious thing. It's not only culture, it's a religious thing, but also been fed by the propaganda, the Islamic propaganda that started in the 80s.
Do you see this as a big obstacle to peace?
Of course, definitely. It's like the same obstacle we have in the Israeli government. When you have people tend to compromise everything and they can and think that eliminating the other is the solution, we will still have this on both sides.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. As a growing up in a Jewish family, I know for me, I've seen I would say it's a lot of arrogance of thinking that the Jewish people are like the chosen people and special in that way. And I think that also contributes as a part of the religion. It also contributes to what's going on in Israel and Palestine very significantly. But when you were talking about this originally, this mentality of being okay with dying, and you were saying that maybe that means that there needs to be a side taken, maybe that because otherwise this will just end in complete destruction because the people in Palestine will fight to the last person.
It's not like one way around like that. Economy has a lot to do with the thing, to be honest. When you have people like they don't have future and they don't even have present, and they don't have job, they don't have everything. So you have to expect that they are going to that path of carrying a gun and wanting to die to go to heaven. It's much easier than living in the life, of course.
Right. So the economy is an important piece of the puzzle too. But so just to make sure I understand what you're saying, do you think it is important to take a side in order to push back against the more powerful party in a conflict, or do you believe that it's better to avoid taking sides and focus on peace and humanity and brotherhood and oneness and leave the past in the past and move forward toward peace without assigning blame?
In my opinion, it's a personal opinion again, I think we have had enough of this war. There are many people has died, and 80% of Gaza has been destroyed. Many people has lost their loved ones in Israel as well, soldiers and normal people. First step is to stop this. Let's stop this. Then we need to find a way to promote peace. That's it. It's simple as that.
But if you're somebody who's sitting in Canada or USA, do you want them to criticize only Israel, criticize Israel and Palestinians, or something different?
Of course, we need to criticize both sides because we have been talking now for an hour of the negatives on the both sides. So there's no other way around to finish that.
I actually agree. My perception is I found so much fault in many ways, different ways, but from both sides and how they're contributing, and just blaming one because you perceive somebody as being lighter skinned or less power. Yeah, I get it, the power thing. I get it, but it's not the whole picture. It's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we can't let that. The world should stop that simply.
The world should stop that simply. Thank you so much, both of you. Which do you think would be more likely to lead to lasting peace right now? Stopping the war in Gaza or continuing until the destruction of Hamas? I'd like to put it to both of you.
You want to go ahead?
Guys, go ahead.
Not me. I'm not really sure if it's possible to destroy Hamas or by the way, everyone talks about Hamas. The issue is Palestinian resistance, violent resistance. I mean, people protesting. No, I don't care about any violent resistance to Israel, meaning I don't believe Israel exists. That's what it really means. And we're going to kill you for it until you give us back everything or somewhat. I don't think there's a way to, because it's a mentality. It's not a people. So I don't think there's really a way to do it. It's interesting to, I mean, sort of, it sounds awful. God, this is really inhumane, but it's interesting to see if it would be possible. I don't see it, but I'm wrong about many things. I don't know. So what do? I don't know. I really don't know, because that's, to me, is the issue. People talk about UNRWA and it has to be disbanded. And like, that's not the issue, because Palestinians learn in schools, whether it's under UNRWA or Palestinian regular curriculum, they learn the same thing. Israel doesn't exist, and it's our job to either expel them or to win, or however you want to. That's the issue. And on the Israeli side, it's Palestinians. Basically, most Israelis believe, yes, Palestinian exists. They just have to stop all violence and then live under us in some way. Now, some people believe that could be inequality, and some people are like, yeah, you can't ever trust Arabs, period. This dehumanization of each other is awful. And I don't know, it's going to be harder, I think, with Palestinians, because it's who's going to tell them to stop doing it? Actually, it's difficult with both sides. How do you change people? How do you re-brainwash them towards something more humane? I don't know.
It's a very long time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, I just want to clarify here. With Corey, there's this in the West, there's a ceasefire versus no ceasefire. People calling for a ceasefire. People, would you outrightly call for a ceasefire at this point, or no?
Well, it'd be a ceasefire with returning the hostages, with agreeing to reform societies here, so we can actually live in peace. It's not a black and white only this thing. Right. So, of course, I don't want people in Gaza dying. Yes, of course not.
So they're not, Hamas is not going to return the hostages until there's a ceasefire. That's what they say. So obviously we wish that we could tell Hamas, hey, stop doing that and return the hostages, and there'll be a bilateral ceasefire. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. The Israeli government has the power to do a unilateral ceasefire. If you were making that decision, would you do it?
Me, yes, because I don't think it's possible to really get rid of all resistance, whether Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or even Fatah. They're all the same in some senses. So I don't really think it's possible. But I would say yes, but to the world, meaning we have a problem here. And I think Palestinians could say the same thing about Israel, by the way. We have a problem here that 1,200 people, civilians, were killed, or 1,000 civilians, I think is actually the final count, were killed on that day. What stops people from doing it again? How do we stop civilians from dying? And if I were Palestinians, I would ask the same thing. How do I stop civilians from dying? I would like to know. Even though sometimes there's a lot of people who I know about Palestinians getting killed in the West Bank. Sorry, Mohammed, for what I'm about to say. A lot of them are kind of, we're planning to kill Israelis. And part of me doesn't feel that bad about it. But civilians, absolutely, yes. Even if they had whatever horrible views, no civilian, no child, no person deserves to die because they have a horrible view. If not, I have to kill half the people on Earth because we all have horrible views sometimes. It has to do with actions.
Powerful and important point. Thank you. And I know you have to go soon, so I just wanted to I would put the same question to Mohammed just quickly. Would you say that it's more likely to lead to peace if Israel would continue the war against Hamas, or do you think it would be more likely to lead to peace if they would stop and have a ceasefire right now?
Of course, I agree with Corey that we need a holistic approach. First of all, stop this and find a way how to deal with it. Because again, as I said before, it's an ideology, and you can't win over an ideology. This ideology is still living there in North Syria, as I have said before, and it will come again in Gaza. The same thing. You can't defeat an idea, and it will come again. And if we didn't do anything to stop that,
so you would say
the first unilateral step that is to change leadership.
So you would say Israel should stop right now, unilateral ceasefire, even if the hostages are not returned. You would say that would be.
Of course, that's enough. You don't need actually to erase 80% of the region to kill to eliminate Hamas, and you know that it's impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
So how would we Mohammed? How would we change that? Any ideas? How do you change an entire mentality of resistance?
That's impossible. Actually, it needs a long process, and it starts with the economy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something to that, because if you look at the Gulf, it's true. They changed that mentality in the last 40 years. At least it seems that way.
Actually, the ISIS and the most horrific terrorists came from Saudi Arabia. They had a propaganda in late 60s up to 90s to have the Mujahideen and to fight against Russia and Afghanistan, and that's why they had plenty of terrorists around the world. But now, because they have chosen another way to promote economy and welfare, things has just started to change after years. So we need 50 years minimum if we started now.
So yes, I agree. The economy and education, I think, are the two most important things that can actually help to change the population's views and things like that.
You need a couple of steps. First, economy, education, leadership, and then you need to deal with the other minor stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's a good place to wrap up. Thank you, Corey and Mohammed, for joining me today in this conversation. And I think we could all talk for many more hours, but I think at this point, we've talked about a lot of things, and hopefully these things can be used for understanding in the West and understanding between ourselves, and to be able to hopefully at some point move in a positive direction toward peace and resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. And I'll see you later, and you'll be in the peace issue of the upcoming Meditation magazine.